Take those comments and pass them on to Representative Tom Cole, who's joining us on the phone right now, Republican of Oklahoma. Congressman, this is your hometown. You're in Moore, Oklahoma. Describe the city.
Well, it's a city of about 55,000, 60,000 people. It historically was a small farming community outside Oklahoma City. When I moved here in 1960, my family had about 1,500 people in it. It's heavily suburban. Really hardworking, incredibly decent people, pretty dynamic community, and it's been going through, quite honestly, a lot of growth. But wonderful place to live, wonderful place to raise a family, awfully tough and resilient people.
The twister that lingered over Moore for 40 minutes is said to have been 600 times bigger than Hiroshima.
Well, I was pretty, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Devastating. I mean, look, I've lived in this town for 53 years, and I think I know every street like the back of my hand, but there's some of these areas you can walk through and you're literally disoriented. Plaza Towers, where we had the tragic loss of the life of some children and teachers, was, if you go to it, and I've been there dozens of times over the years, it's a polling place. When I was much younger, I was a groundskeeper in the local school system, and that was one of my schools that I did. So it's a place I know pretty well. I literally couldn't recognize it, and I wouldn't have known where I was if you looked at the wreckage around. So it, in the places where the tornado hit the strongest, and that was probably ground zero, the damage is just almost unearthly to look at.
And what have you learned since getting back to Moore, Oklahoma, since Monday? What do the people need first, do you think, from the state government and then also from the federal government?
The first thing they'd ask you is your prayers, if you're so inclined. It's a community of really deeply one of faith. After that, obviously, there's the immediate help. The people like the Salvation Army, the Oklahoma Red Cross, those kind of folks do a wonderful job in these situations. We've already got a tremendous local response. We get a lot of help. We've got awfully good first responders here, and the communities around us, Oklahoma City, Midwest City, they're pouring people and resources in to help. I saw Mayor Cornett from Oklahoma City here yesterday. Mary Fallon, our governor, you just couldn't have anybody better. She's been lieutenant governor. We were both state officials during the Oklahoma City bombing, and she knows what she's doing, and she's already working with the legislature to allow resources from the state's rainy day fund to be diverted here as needed. And finally, the federal response, honestly, has been first rate. Talked to the president 2 nights ago, and Secretary Napolitano yesterday morning. She'll be here this afternoon for a tour. So we've gotten very excellent, very robust federal response. If I may, I do want to address your caller.
Yes, please.
Earlier. This is not pro. First of all, we've been exporting energy out of here for 100 years to all parts of the country, and we still do. It's one of the leading oil and gas places in America. It's a heavy exporter of wheat and cattle, so we feed you and we give you your energy. I always like to say we got about the best football team in America every 10 years, too. But beyond that, it's an incredibly productive place, and people live here because they love it. The relief we get, and we appreciate it, by the way, and I voted for Sandy relief, but we'll spend more money on Sandy and Katrina than we spend on all the tornadoes combined. The destruction is worse at the given spot, but it's not multiple state area. This is a disaster area that's about 17 miles long and between a mile and a quarter wide. Within there, everything's destroyed. Outside there, it's not. So it's just, visually it's overwhelming, and it is very difficult to see when you're on ground, but it's not state after state. So, look, I'm happy to step up and help other Americans, in Katrina and Sandy. I voted for those things. I was proud to do it. That's what Americans do, and again, other Americans have certainly helped us. But this is home. We certainly don't intend to move away, and this is the place we want to raise our kids, not take them someplace else. So
and
somebody visit it, they'd like it, I guarantee you.
Yeah, Congressman, there are headlines quoting people from Oklahoma and more saying, we will rebuild. But if they do, should there be federal regulations, state regulations, local regulations that say you must have a safe house or you must rebuild with certain material? Article in the New York Times this morning said many of the homes in Moore were built the same way they were pre-1999 tornado.
Well, actually, the area that was hit here is almost all older parts of the city. They're much older than that, and most of the new homes do, honestly have, people add safe rooms and what have you, new schools. But I think that's worth thinking about, and actually, the legislature is, thinking about that right now in terms of assistance doing it. This is a community that taxes itself, prides itself in its school system. So I have no doubt there'll be some discussion here about upgrading schools. The school building itself, though, was the safest building in the area. If you actually looked at the houses around it, when you're above ground, if you're in any structure above ground, and you have an F5, and that's what was declared yesterday, I mean, you're talking 220 to 300 mile plus winds. There's not a lot that withstands that, and that's where the ferocity of a tornado, it's not nearly the scope and size, obviously, of a hurricane, which can devastate areas, but at the point of attack, so to speak, that's wind that's much greater than any hurricane would have. So it's just, it's one of those things that, sadly, we had a lot of people in the wrong place at the wrong time. They did the right things. We get good warning. We evacuate well. We prepare. We've got great first responders, but sometimes when Mother Nature comes, the idea that you can anticipate and overcome everything at the moment, just not so. So you work through it as best you can, and then you move on from there and you start your life over. People here are awfully good at doing that.
Congressman, I have to ask you before we let you go, should this money for Oklahoma include offsets?
It's a little early to tell. This won't be on the scale the size of Sandy, so we may well have the money available. I think you should always be prudent, but at the end of the day, look, we had votes on offsets where Sandy relief was concerned, but they didn't pass. So I'm all for helping people when a disaster happens. I'm worried it's in New York or in Florida. I was happy to vote to help the people on the ground. I think that's what you do for your fellow Americans. I've seen it happen on 9/11. I've seen it happen in the Oklahoma City bombing, and certainly seen it happen repeatedly with these horrific acts of nature that sometimes befall any part of the country. So I'm never going to be for denying an American the relief they need at the time of extreme need. So,
okay.
I'll just work with the folks, and we're not going to get caught up in a big political controversy. I know the help will be here on a bipartisan basis, and after that, if we can find a better way to do it, that's fine. But right now, I think the help's required, and I have no doubt it's going to be forthcoming.
All right. Representative Tom Cole, Republican of Oklahoma, serves on the Appropriations and Budget Committees. Thank you, sir, for your time. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.